My name was Omar bin Alif. I was a district attorney in the heart of Manhattan, respected in my Muslim community, dedicated to the law, to tradition, to a life that was supposed to reflect honor. But inside me, shadows grew deeper. My heart, once filled with unwavering faith, felt a gnawing emptiness, an echo of questions that haunted my prayers. Was this all there was to life? Why did God seem so far away? One stormy night, as thunder roared outside, I found myself alone with my thoughts, sifting through evidence for a case that demanded my utmost attention. Suddenly, the darkness caught me off guard. I collapsed, and in that moment, I crossed a threshold I could never have anticipated. I wasn't simply gasping for air. I was drifting towards something otherworldly, something I had never been prepared to encounter. In that chilling abyss, a radiant figure emerged. Jesus. He called my name with authority and love, unveiling truths I had spent a lifetime shunning. In that sacred space between life and death, he showed me the spiritual war that raged around me, one that had silently infiltrated the beliefs I held dear. It was a revelation that shattered my understanding of faith, power, and the very essence of my being. When I returned to the weight of my life, everything had changed. I was met with the cold silence of disbelief and rejection from my family and community. The struggle within me escalated. The fear of losing all I had cherished wrestled with the truth that now burned in my heart. The battle was not just for my soul. It was for the souls of many, caught in a system that thrives on fear and repression. I began to seek the truth, hidden behind layers of dogma, illuminated by grace. In shadows, I turned to the Bible, finding solace among words that beckoned my soul to awaken. In secret, I discovered a small community of believers who welcomed me, offering hope amidst my isolation. Together, we breathed life into the truth I had been blind to, a truth that dared to challenge the oppressive norms around us. Now I stand on the brink of a new mission, compelled to awaken others to the freedom found in Jesus. I've left my old life behind, but the journey ahead demands courage, faith, and the willingness to risk everything. This isn't just about my story. It's about sparking a revolution of hearts, awakening to love, grace, and undeniable truth. Before we dive deeper into this profound revelation, I invite you to share in the comments where you are watching from. I'm eager to connect and witness how far this message travels. And if you love Jesus and want to join this journey of awakening, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. Trust me, you won't want to miss the revelations yet to come. In the heart of Manhattan, the vibrant pulse of my neighborhood was steeped in rich Islamic traditions. The prayers resonated through the streets, a steady reminder of faith woven into the fabric of everyday life. Yet beneath that surface lay a conflicting sense of reverence and fear, produced by emotional repression. I was a district attorney, a role that demanded both respect and integrity, but I often felt overwhelmed by the expectations surrounding me. My job consumed me, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something within me was unfulfilled, a piece of my soul longing for awakening. One fateful evening, as I was reviewing evidence for a complex case, a pang of anxiety struck me. My mind was racing, but amidst the chaos, I suddenly felt heavy and faint. Before I knew it, darkness enveloped me, and I found myself in a liminal space, detached from my physical body. In that moment of profound nothingness, I encountered Jesus, radiant and full of an enduring love that seemed to transcend time and space. He called my name, and in that instant, every fear and doubt I'd ever harbored began to dissolve. I felt an overwhelming clarity, as if scales were being pulled from my eyes. During that encounter, Jesus revealed critical truths that shook the very foundations of my understanding. I was shown how the hidden agendas of the elite manipulate global events, creating layers of deception that keep society bound in fear and division. I witnessed the spiritual war being fought on multiple fronts, not just against external enemies but within our hearts and minds. The images were stunning and heavy. I saw wars ignited under false pretenses, communities torn apart by misinformation, and how shadows of doubt crept into the belief systems of the faithful, hindering their connection to the divine. The urgency in Jesus' message pressed upon me, urging me to recognize and confront the deceptions we often accept without question. I realized that my role as a prosecutor extended beyond the courtroom. I had a duty to unveil truths, to expose the lies that bound people to their fears. The responsibility weighed heavily on me, but I also felt empowered by the knowledge that I was not alone in this fight. I understood that awakening was not just a personal endeavor. It was a collective journey for anyone yearning to break free from the chains of societal expectation and control. As I returned to my body, gasping for breath, I knew that everything had changed. The fluorescent lights of my office felt harsh against the newfound warmth in my heart. I could no longer ignore the path laid before me. Each case would serve as a platform for my awakening, each interaction an opportunity to spread the revelations I had received. I felt compelled to share these truths, to foster an awakening within my community and beyond, even as I navigated the treacherous waters of skepticism and fear from those who might not understand my transformation. The journey ahead was filled with uncertainty, but I was resolved to embrace it, driven by the need to shine a light in the darkness and help others find their way toward truth and spiritual liberation. I've always been known as a diligent lawyer, a respected district attorney in my community. At 38, I appeared to have it all together: a successful career, a loving family, and the admiration of my peers. But beneath that polished facade lay an unsettling truth. I was grappling with an inner void, a disconnection from the spirituality that once gave my life meaning. In the hustle and bustle of Manhattan, where the vibrancy of the city pulsed outside my office window, I felt increasingly isolated, my faith overshadowed by the pressures of a demanding profession. Long hours spent reviewing evidence and preparing cases left little room for introspection. Each day, I went through the motions, fulfilling obligations while suppressing the growing discontent within. I attended Friday prayers, recited the verses dutifully, yet the words felt hollow. As I engaged with my work, I often found myself questioning the deeper meanings behind my actions. Was I truly serving justice, or had I become a pawn in a larger game driven by ambition? The more I pondered, the more I sensed an urgency to explore the spiritual aspects of my life that I had neglected for far too long. Then, one fateful night, while poring over a particularly troubling case, exhaustion overtook me. It felt as if the walls of the office were closing in, and I suddenly lost consciousness. I found myself in an ethereal state, enveloped in darkness, but it was not an empty void. In that space, I encountered Jesus. His light radiated warmth and unconditional love, surrounding me with a sense of peace I'd never before experienced. In that moment, all the turmoil of my life faded away as he called my name, and I felt a clarity wash over me unlike anything I could have imagined. Jesus shared revelations that penetrated my very being. I was shown the hidden agendas that rule the world, the ways the elite manipulate us through fear and division. I witnessed the spiritual war waged on humanity, where souls are caught in the crossfire of competing ideologies and societal pressures. He unveiled the deception that obscured our understanding of truth, illustrating how the narratives we accept as reality are often designed to control and keep us in a state of confusion. The weight of this knowledge pressed heavily on my heart, igniting a fire within me to share what I had learned. As I returned to consciousness, the rush of reality hit me like a tidal wave. I awoke in my office, the cold air lingering in an oppressive silence, yet my heart was aflame with purpose. The revelations I had received demanded action. I could no longer live in a state of quiet denial. I felt called to embrace my awakening, to confront the disconnection that had clouded my spirit and reach out to others trapped in their own cycles of deception. The urgency was palpable, and I knew this journey was just beginning, one that could bridge the gap between my previous life and the new path unfolding before me. The path would be fraught with challenges, but with each step I took, I felt the powerful presence of Jesus, guiding me toward the light, urging me to share my story and illuminate the truth for those around me. As I participated in prayers at the mosque, I often felt a weight pressing heavily on my chest. Although I followed the rituals and recited the verses, a gnawing sense of doubt crept into my mind. It wasn't just the prayers. It was a pervading feeling that I was losing my connection to something foundational. I would watch others around me, hands raised in worship, eyes closed in devotion, and I'd wonder why I felt so lost amid all that faith. Each call to prayer echoed against the walls, and while they were meant to uplift, I caught myself questioning the doctrines I had been taught, the very teachings that had been my compass for so long. Gradually, this internal struggle intensified. I became aware of an oppression that stemmed not just from my doubts, but from the very environment in which I existed. The expectations were suffocating. Every moment felt dictated by the invisible hand of cultural norms and familial pressures. It was as if I were living in a cage decorated with beautiful traditions, yet completely trapped. I began to understand that the spiritual war won seemed to feel was deeply rooted in my heart, a conflict between my ingrained beliefs and my yearning for truth. It was during one of those restless nights, lying awake, that I found myself deep in introspection. The silence of my room contrasted sharply with the chaos inside my mind. I thought about the elite who shaped our world, the hidden agendas that influenced our perceptions and dictated our beliefs. I had always viewed the political landscape as a distant shadow, irrelevant to my life in the courtroom, but the more I allowed my thoughts to wander, the more I connected the dots. The truth was becoming clearer. Our society was rife with deception, and it was no accident that many of us remained oblivious to this reality. And then came that fateful moment. I collapsed in my office while reviewing evidence for a significant case. Instead of fear, I was overwhelmed by a comforting warmth as I slipped away into unconsciousness. I didn't just meet Jesus. I found myself enveloped in his light, which radiated pure love and understanding. He spoke to me, revealing truths that shattered the fabric of my established beliefs. The clarity was unrelenting. I witnessed the manipulation at the hands of those in power, as well as the consequences of remaining silent and compliant. Everyone around us was entrenched in a battle we couldn't see clearly, unaware of the spiritual warfare raging beneath the surface of our lives. When I awakened, the world looked the same, but I felt irrevocably changed. The shadows of doubt that had once plagued me now stood in stark contrast to the light of truth I had seen in my encounter. I understood that this was not merely a personal journey. It was a call to action. I had to fight against the spiritual war that engulfed us, to confront the deception that held so many captive. As I resumed my work as a prosecutor, every case took on new meaning. I felt an immense responsibility to uncover the truth, to unveil the hidden motivations driving the people and systems around me. This awakening ignited a fire within me, one that could no longer sit idle in a society teetering on the brink of division. Each day presented a new opportunity to speak out, to share my story, and to guide others toward their own awakenings. The journey ahead was daunting, but with each step, I felt Jesus beside me, encouraging me to walk boldly into the truth. The storm raged outside as I sat in my dimly lit office, the sounds of thunder rumbling through the building like a warning. It had been one of those long, exhausting days, filled with the weight of cases that never seemed to end. As a district attorney, I was used to the pressure, but that night felt different. My mind slipped into a haze, blurring the lines between reality and fatigue. I was poring over evidence, trying to make sense of the tangled web unfolding in front of me when suddenly everything went dark. I collapsed, and in that moment of unconsciousness, something miraculous happened. I found myself enveloped in a brilliant light, feeling warmth like I had never felt before. There, standing before me, was Jesus, his presence both humbling and overwhelming. He called my name, and in that instant I was flooded with a profound sense of peace. It was as if all my doubts and fears faded away, replaced by a clarity that pierced through the darkness of my soul. He gazed at me with eyes that saw right through to my heart, exposing the layers of confusion and disappointment that had plagued me for years. In that time suspended between two worlds, I was granted a revelation. Jesus revealed the hidden agenda that lay beneath the surface of our daily lives, how the elite manipulate and control, creating divisions among us that keep us distracted and fearful. I watched as images of wars and conflicts flashed before me, stark reminders of the ongoing spiritual war at play in our society. The truth unfolded before my eyes, showing how deception ingrained in our systems had led to the suffering of so many. It became painfully clear that the struggles I faced were not merely personal, but part of a larger war for the soul of humanity. His voice resonated with urgency as he spoke to me about awakening, the need for us to rise up against the lies that bind us. Each revelation deepened my understanding of the interconnectedness of our lives. The political, social, and spiritual realms were intricately woven together in a delicate dance. I could see how fear was used as a weapon, enabling those in power to dictate the narrative, keeping us complacent and dissociated from our true selves. Jesus urged me to confront these powers, to demand the truth, and to not allow fear to dictate our paths any longer. Just as quickly as the vision began, it started to fade. I could feel the pulling back toward the physical realm, toward my life in Manhattan, but the impact of the experience clung to me like the shadows of the storm outside. As I regained consciousness, the daunting reality hit me. My understanding of the world had forever changed, and with that change came the weight of responsibility. I knew I had to act, to share these revelations and awaken others who, like me, wandered in the dark, trapped by fears and stilled by a deceptive world. I had been called to embrace this journey, to illuminate the truth in a society shrouded in uncertainty, and as I began to piece my life back together, I understood that the battle for awakening was just beginning. Returning to my life after that moment of revelation felt like stepping into a storm. The familiar sights of Manhattan, once bustling and vibrant, now felt eerily overwhelming. I was back in my office, surrounded by papers and evidence, but everything seemed different. The weight of my family's rejection hung heavily on my shoulders. I had thought they would understand the transformation I'd undergone, yet instead, I became the outcast, the one who dared to question what we had always held dear. Each conversation turned into a delicate dance, where I felt the walls closing in around me, straddling the line between my new beliefs and the culture I had known all my life. Feelings of isolation began to seep into my daily routine, a haunting reminder of the price of my awakening. It was hard to reconcile the love I had for my family with their resistance to my newfound truth. I often felt like a ghost, floating between two worlds that refused to unite. Guilt gnawed at me, urging me to reconsider the choices I made after encountering Jesus. Had I truly been called to this path, or was I simply casting aside the foundation upon which my life had been built? These thoughts spiraled through my mind like a storm, oscillating between clarity and confusion. In the quiet moments at home, I wrestled with fear. What if my journey led only to further alienation? What if the path I chose was one that ultimately left me alone? The realization that I was part of a larger spiritual war, a struggle between enlightenment and deception, almost felt like too much to bear. I knew there were hidden agendas at play, systems designed to keep us divided, to instill fear and maintain control. But fighting against that truth in my own home proved to be a greater battle than any I'd faced in court. The gnawing feeling that I had to speak out and challenge those narratives pressed on my heart. The community I once found comfort in now paralyzed me with doubt. My colleagues regarded my enthusiasm for sharing my experience with skepticism, and family dinners turned into tenuous exercises in maintaining the facade of normalcy. It angered me at times. Their refusal to acknowledge the revelations that were so clear to me felt like a betrayal. I longed for the acceptance that had defined my past, but also recognized that I could no longer live in the shadows of their expectations. My loyalty to them conflicted with my responsibility to shed light on the truth that I had witnessed. Yet there was something within me, a flicker of resilience that refused to be extinguished. I began to seek solace beyond my immediate environment, connecting with others who had faced similar transformations. They were scattered across the city, bringing their own stories of awakening and sharing the revelations they had experienced. It was in these conversations that I found strength and affirmation. The understanding that the journey was not just mine, but ours together in a greater spiritual awakening. I felt called to take this revelation further, to advocate for the truth, to confront the deception that held others captive. Navigating this path was treacherous, but as I looked ahead, I sensed that the true battle was only beginning, filled with the potential for profound change not just in my life, but for those around me as well. In the stillness of my apartment, I began my secret quest for truth, hiding away from the judgmental eyes of my community. The emptiness I felt in my soul urged me to seek answers beyond the walls of my upbringing. I turned to the Bible, a book I had been taught to respect but never truly understood. Each passage felt like a key to unlock the mysteries I had wrestled with for so long. I started to see echoes of my own challenges reflected in the stories of struggle and redemption. I could feel the stirring of something powerful inside me, a yearning for awakening that I couldn't ignore any longer. As I immersed myself in Scripture, I sought out testimonies from others who had experienced a similar transformation. These accounts offered solace, confirming that I wasn't alone in facing the deep questions of faith. I found a small Christian community willing to embrace me, a group where I could share my journey without fear of ridicule. This circle became my sanctuary, a place where the teachings of Jesus permeated, providing warmth amidst my persistent anxiety about losing everything dear to me. Sharing my story felt like a courageous act, a defiance against the deception that had kept me silent for far too long. In moments spent with this community, I began to form connections that transcended cultural barriers. We discussed the spiritual war we were all engaged in, how the hidden agendas of the elite affected our lives, and how the narratives fed to us often served to divide rather than unite. I listened as others spoke of their struggles, the battles against doubt and fear, and how they sought the truth. With each conversation, my resolve strengthened. I saw firsthand how the urgency to awaken from the deception revealed layers of understanding that had lain dormant for too long. Yet the fear of losing the approval of my family loomed over me like a dark cloud. I couldn't help but think of the consequences of openly embracing these new beliefs. What would my parents think? How could I reconcile my experiences with the traditions that had shaped my identity? The inner conflict intensified, creating a tension that felt unbearable at times. But the more I engaged with the truth, the clearer it became that living in fear would only lead to further disconnection from my true self. I had to stand firm in my faith, despite the looming threat of social ostracism. As I navigated this complex terrain, Jesus' words echoed in my heart, serving as a guide through these turbulent waters. The revelations I had received during my near-death experience fueled my mission to spread awareness and understanding. It became apparent to me that this journey was not just about me. It was about empowering others to uncover their truths and challenge the status quo. I felt a profound sense of responsibility to those still trapped in ignorance, urging them to awaken from their slumber. I realized that my life had taken a new direction, one filled with purpose and urgency, where every step I took was about illuminating the path toward freedom and truth for myself and those around me. The battle was far from over, but I was ready to engage, understanding that true liberation lay in confronting the darkness with unwavering courage. In the weeks following my encounter with Jesus, my entire life began to transform in ways I never imagined possible. The moment I recognized that my revelation served a higher purpose, I felt an overwhelming compulsion rising within me. It was as if a flame had been ignited, compelling me to awaken those around me to the true nature of faith. This mission brought with it a mix of excitement and terror. There was a clear understanding that confronting the status quo came with risks. I was entering a landscape rife with deception, but the importance of liberation from those chains became more evident with every passing day. My days were filled with a sense of urgency that I couldn't shake. As a district attorney, I had spent years pursuing justice, yet now I felt a deeper calling that extended beyond the courtroom. Every piece of evidence I handled seemed to whisper the stories of those who had been wronged by a system built on hidden agendas. I often found myself reflecting on the spiritual war taking place not just in the courts, but in every aspect of society. As I studied political movements and social issues, I began to see how the manipulation by the elite kept people in fear that stifled their spiritual growth and awareness. Jesus had revealed to me the insidious nature of the deception that surrounded many of us. I recognized that faith was more than rituals. It was a living, breathing truth that could break through the barriers of fear and ignorance. I engaged in conversations with colleagues and friends, sharing the insights I had gained, but their reactions varied dramatically. Some listened intently, others dismissed my experiences, and a few outright opposed my newfound beliefs. Each interaction felt like a trial, a test of my conviction and courage to stand firm in the face of skepticism. Despite the challenges, there was solace in my newfound community, the ones who had also ventured into the depths of awakening. Together we discussed how revealing the truth could dismantle the barriers dividing us. In those vibrant discussions, I felt empowered, fueled by a shared desire to encourage others to pursue their own truths. We explored the social injustices that were inseparably linked to larger global conflicts, identifying ways our collective awakening could lead to real change. Each conversation reinforced my commitment to this mission, reminding me that I was not alone in this struggle. As the echoes of my past lingered in my thoughts, the tension between my duty to my family and my duty to the truth began to crescendo. I often wondered whether I could reconcile my experiences with the love I held from my upbringing. Every day presented a new opportunity to reach out to those still trapped in traditional mindsets, suffering under the weight of outdated beliefs. I felt called to bridge that divide, to help them see the truths that Jesus had revealed to me. The path ahead was daunting, filled with uncertainty, but the call to share this awakening was undeniable, compelling me to embrace the unknown and step forward, ready to confront the challenges that lay in wait. In a moment of profound clarity, I realized I had to leave behind my old life as a district attorney. The pressures, the expectations, and the constant pull of conformity felt suffocating. I needed a fresh start, a space where I could fully embrace my awakening without the weight of judgment from my former life. The decision to relocate was daunting, filled with uncertainty. I chose a new neighborhood, one that felt alive with possibility. It was a place where I could forge a new identity, and for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. Adopting a new name became an act of rebellion against the hidden agendas that had kept me bound to my past. My former self, the prosecutor who thrived on rigidity and expectation, began to fade. I embraced this new chapter as a profound spiritual rebirth. In those early days, I spent hours reflecting on my journey, grounding myself in the truths I had uncovered in my encounter with Jesus. His revelations about the spiritual war we are all engaged in rang in my ears, reminding me of the urgent need to awaken not just myself but others who were still trapped in the web of deception spun by the elite. As I settled into my new surroundings, I sought out community gatherings and places of worship that aligned with my evolving beliefs. Every conversation felt electrifying, each connection I made reinforcing the sense of awakening I had experienced. Here, I found souls who had also faced their crises of faith and emerged transformed. As we shared our stories, I listened intently, absorbing their struggles, their triumphs, and the truths they had discovered. These exchanges filled me with a sense of purpose, urging me to articulate my own experiences. I felt compelled to share what Jesus had revealed to me, the hidden truths that had the power to unravel the lies that kept us divided. But within that newfound freedom lay a deep undercurrent of fear. The fear that if I revealed too much, I would lose everything I had just built. The nagging shadows of doubt haunted me. What if my family learned of my journey? What if they saw me as a traitor to the faith I had been raised to uphold? Even in my awakening, the fear of rejection was palpable, looming large over my newly forged identity. Yet through prayer and reflection, I came to realize that my journey was not just a personal quest, it was a call to action. If I was to help others uncover their truths, I needed to be brave enough to stand in my own light, even if it meant facing the darkness of my old life. As I took those first steps into this new chapter, I felt Jesus' presence guiding me, whispering encouragement as I ventured into unknown territory. The mission was clear. I had to help others break free from the chains of deception, just as I had. Each day became an opportunity to share my story, to advocate for the truth, and to challenge the narratives that kept society shackled in fear. There was an exhilarating urgency in every encounter, a driving force behind the desire to illuminate the path for those lost in the confusion of our times. I knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the potential for transformation fueled my spirit, propelling me forward into the light of awakening, ready to face whatever came next. As I settled into my new community, the transformation I had undergone began to take root in ways I never expected. The journey of awakening didn't just change my beliefs. It reshaped my entire being. Surrounded by like-minded individuals who understood the challenges of breaking free from religious constraints, I felt an emerging sense of belonging. This was a space where vulnerability was honored, and shared struggles became the groundwork for collective healing. I found myself motivated not only to embrace my own truth, but to help others who felt shackled by the expectations of their faith. Each interaction was a reminder of the spiritual war we were all engaged in. We shared stories of personal battles against deception, unveiling the hidden agendas that permeated our lives. The revelations I had encountered during my near-death experience no longer felt confined to my solitary journey. They expanded into a wider understanding of the societal and political fabric that often kept us in shadows. As we discussed the ways the elite perpetuate division and manipulate narratives, it became clear how intertwined our lives were in a struggle for truth. Each conversation deepened my resolve to advocate for clarity, to challenge the status quo, and offer a beacon of hope to those yearning for awakening. In offering support to others, I felt a profound sense of purpose. It was rewarding to see individuals experience their own revelations, to witness the flicker of understanding ignite in their eyes, breaking through the chains of confusion. Yet, alongside this hope, the weight of my own family's rejection lingered, the profound heartache of knowing that those I loved might never embrace these changes. The emotional tides ebbed and flowed, leaving me grappling with the duality of my existence. How could I be the catalyst for others' growth while still yearning for acceptance from my own family? This internal conflict became both a source of strength and a source of pain. As I navigated this complex landscape, the teachings of Jesus guided my journey. His messages of love and reconciliation fueled my interactions, reminding me that my role was to foster understanding rather than impose beliefs. I learned that awakening is not a singular event, but a continuous process, one that requires patience and compassion, both for myself and for those I encounter. I began to cultivate a spirit of forgiveness, anchoring myself in the belief that one day, the truth would connect me to my family again. I envisioned conversations filled with understanding, where we could explore our perspectives without condemnation, but with open hearts. The possibility of reconciliation with my family hung in the air, a tantalizing yet daunting prospect. As I engaged with others on their spiritual journeys, I felt my resolve strengthen. With every person I helped, I pieced together the hope that one day my family would share in this awakening too. The battle for truth extended beyond my personal experiences. It was a communal effort to uplift and enlighten. I knew I had to move forward into the uncertainty, trusting that the love I had for my family would ultimately guide me back to them. The road may be long and fraught with challenges, but the promise of transformation, for myself and for the world around me, was a beacon worth pursuing. The time for silence was over. The time for action, for sharing my story, had come. For much of my life, I lived within the confines of expectation. As a district attorney, I was known for my discipline and determination, often putting my career above everything else. Yet, inside, I felt a growing unease, a spiritual emptiness that nagged at my heart. I was steeped in the traditions of my faith, regularly attending prayers, yet I found myself questioning the very doctrines I had been taught. My mind wrestled with doubt as I attempted to reconcile my professional life with the spiritual truths I felt were eluding me. This internal conflict brewed within me, creating an anxiety I couldn't quite shake. One stormy night, as I meticulously reviewed evidence for an important case, the pressure became unbearable. My workspace, usually a fortress of order, began to spin out of control. I felt dizzy, then suddenly collapsed. Darkness overwhelmed me. It was in that stillness, in that profound emptiness, that I encountered Jesus. His radiant presence filled the void, and in a moment that felt both eternal and fleeting, he looked deep into my soul. He called my name, and everything that had ever caused me pain or confusion seemed to dissolve in the light of his love. I felt utterly seen and understood in a way I had never experienced before. In this encounter, Jesus revealed hidden truths about the world I inhabited. I was shown the mechanisms of deception that had kept humanity ensnared in fear, how the elite manipulate information, crafting narratives that deepen our divisions instead of uniting us. I witnessed the spiritual war raging unseen, battling for the hearts and minds of individuals caught in a labyrinth of doubt and societal expectations. The clarity was staggering. Everything I previously accepted now appeared fragile, structured on foundations of control rather than love. It became clear to me that this journey to find God required courage, a willingness to question, to seek truth even when it feels threatening. Returning to the physical world was jarring. I awoke to the reality of my office, yet nothing looked the same. My perception had shifted, infused with urgency and a burning desire to share what I had experienced. I would talk about the revelation of love that Jesus had imparted to me, the necessity of awakening others from their slumber. Yet my fears lurked just beneath the surface. The thought of sharing my experience with my family both thrilled and terrified me. The very people who had raised me in tradition might see me as someone betraying their beliefs, rather than as someone seeking deeper understanding. Creating a rift would not come easy, but it was a risk I began to ponder. As I settled into this transformative reality, I felt compelled to reach out, nourishing connections with others who sought truth. I discovered a community of hearts yearning for awakening, each driven by their unique paths, yet bonded by the common goal of unveiling hidden agendas. As we shared and explored concepts of faith and spirituality, the notion of liberation became a central focus. The conversations initiated helped nourish a collective spirit, encouraging each of us to stand against the deception pervading our lives. The truth we sought was a shared reality, one laden with potential for profound change. With every step I took into this newfound community, I realized that while I was guiding others, I was also healing myself. My past no longer felt like an anchor weighing me down, but rather a launchpad toward deeper insights. Still, the longing for reconciliation with my family hung in the balance, an unanswered question in my heart that continued to evoke a spirit of determination. I knew I had to pursue this path courageously, ready to confront the storms ahead. As I ventured forth in sharing my journey, I remained steadfast in my commitment to illuminate the truth, helping others navigate their struggles in a world cloaked in darkness and illusion. The awakening was both personal and universal, a mission attainable if only we dared to challenge the confines of our understanding. Now that you've journeyed with me through the depths of darkness to the light of awakening, I ask you, have you felt that same stirring, that undeniable calling for truth amidst the chaos? In this world that often tells us whom to be and what to believe, there lies a deeper current, a spiritual war for our hearts and minds. Are you ready to confront the shadows that linger in your own life? Through my encounter with Jesus, I saw the veils of deception that surround our everyday existence. It was a call to action, an urgency to awaken from complacency and embrace the profound love that welcomes us into the truth. Every moment carries the potential for transformational change. But remember, this path isn't for the faint of heart. It requires courage, faith, and a willingness to risk everything for a greater purpose. I want to hear from you. Have you experienced a moment that forever changed the way you see the world? What truths are you ready to confront? Share your journey or reflections in the comments. I read each one, and your voice matters in this movement toward enlightenment. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit that notification bell. Your support is vital for continuing this transformative journey together. What's coming next will challenge the boundaries of what you believe to be possible. In the next video, we'll explore another profound testimony from someone who stood at the crossroads of fear and faith and chose to step into the light. I'm Hamza, and I want to thank you for being part of this awakening. Remember, the truth waits eagerly for those ready to embrace it.